to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, just breathe in a feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you breathe out, just imagine that tension, stress, any anxiety is leaving your body. Breathing in that calm feeling of relaxation, and as you exhale, if your eyelids aren't already closed, close your eyes. Now that's it, deeper and deeper. Relaxed. That's it. And I want you to remember a time when you were a child, perhaps a child of 8 years old. And I want you to remember a time when you were 8 years old, perhaps in your home at that age, when someone was telling you a story. And you were told many stories as a child. And I wonder what it would be like to feel like you felt back then when someone was telling you a story. Perhaps you were sat down on the floor with your legs cross-legged. Perhaps you were on a chair. But I want you to imagine that you were in the home wherever you were living when you were 8 years old. And I want you to make yourself comfortable in the same way that you would have done back then when you were listening to a story. Breathe how you breathed back then, listening to that story. I want you to make your facial expressions the same way as you would if you were listening intently to a story. Breathing in that feeling of relaxation, and as you exhale, just feeling deeper and deeper relaxed. Because back then, as a child, listening to a story, it was effortless to be able to make pictures and movies in your mind's eye about how the story was going. Sometimes you would even imagine that you were the main character in that story. And I want you to imagine that as you're listening to this story, you could imagine what it would be like to be the main character in a story. Almost allow your imagination to go from your mind into the book so that the words that you hear are transferred from a story into an experience. And what if that was a story of an 8-year-old child in a house? So you're imagining that you're in a house listening to a story about a child being in a house. And I want you to imagine that you are that child now, 8 years old. And I want you to imagine that you are in a house where your parents have gone out shopping. And I want you to entertain an idea of what it would be like to create something new that the world has never seen before. I want you to imagine that you've been left alone in this house. And I want you to find a comfortable bed in this house. You can wander around the house, and maybe it's a home that you know, or maybe it's just your imagination, imagining a home of an 8-year-old character in a story. And I want you to find a comfortable bed in a relaxing room and make yourself comfortable on that bed. As I count down from 10 to 1, I want you to imagine what it would be like to be a main character in a story, falling asleep on a bed in that home. And imagine that now, with your body relaxing on that bed, feeling your arms and legs on that bed, taking you deeper and deeper relaxed with each and every breath. 9, another 10% deeper relaxed as you can imagine your body sinking into the duvet covers, into the mattress, feeling deeper and deeper relaxed. That's it. 8, feeling that it's easier and easier to breathe. That's it. 7, feeling like your eyelids are getting heavier and heavier and heavier with each and every breath that you take in, and as you exhale. That's it. 6, any tension is leaving your body. That's it. Going deeper and deeper relaxed. That's it. 5, halfway there now to going deeper and deeper relaxed in that body of an 8-year-old child, in that home, in a storybook being told by someone else to you as a child in a memory from a long time ago. That's it. 4, deeper and deeper relaxed. 3, that's it. Imagine falling asleep in that bed, in that story. That's it. 3 and 2, and falling asleep, eyes getting heavier. That's it. 1, and imagine that you've fallen asleep in that bed, in that story. And I want you to imagine a dream where you go downstairs in the same house. You're still that same 8-year-old child, but you have an incredible imagination. Imagine that you are creative. Your imagination knows no bounds. And I want you to imagine rattling around the kitchen to try and find the biggest pan, perhaps a big saucepan, that you can possibly find, the kind of thing that would create soups or stews for an entire family. And I want you to find that big ginormous pot, a pan, the kind of thing for cooking very large meals, but in a single pan, the largest one that you can find. And I want you to imagine that you are going to create something, perhaps a concoction, something new, something brilliant, something strange and unusual. But instead of finding bizarre things around the house, everything from toothpaste to shampoo to old food and milk, I want you to imagine that you're going to create a concoction where you're going to turn memories and ideas into liquid that fill this pan. And I want you to remember a time when you were highly alert, and this can be within the memory of this character, the memory as you, as a child, or in fact your entire life that you've experienced so far. Think of a specific time when you were at your most alert. And when you recall that memory, I want you to imagine what it would be like to have a feeling of alertness turned into a liquid and start pouring alertness into this pan. See the color, the smell. It might be a lot, it might be a small amount. And then I want you to think of a time when you were clever. Now perhaps it was a time that you were academically clever, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a time when you had a clever idea, or you solved a problem in a clever way. But as you recall the idea, or the memory, or a time, or perhaps seeing someone else when they were clever, imagine the feeling of cleverness being turned into a liquid and then poured into the pan, adding to the alertness that's already there. Think of a time when you were exceptional. Exceptional is a subjective feeling, a time when you consider yourself exceptional. Remember that time. Feel the emotion of what it was like to feel exceptional. Turn the feeling of exceptionalness into a liquid and pour it into that large pan. I want you to think of a time now where you were ultra smart. Not just smart or super smart, but a time when you were ultra smart. That's beyond clever. A time that you were smarter than you thought it was possible for you to be. And when you recall that time when you were so quick-witted, so sharp, ultra smart, tap into that memory, that feeling, that excellent feeling of your brain firing on all cylinders. And again, add that liquid into the pan. This combination of memories and emotions are now starting to increase in size, but there is so much more space for additional things to be added. I want you to think of a time when you felt brilliant. It could be a time when you were brilliant as a child. It could be a time that you felt the feeling of brilliance. But recall that memory, recall that time, perhaps even climb into that memory and feel how good it felt to feel brilliant. And then extract the sense of brilliance and add it to the pan. And the pan is rising like a rising tide, but inside the pan. And I want you to think of a time when you were exceptionally good at something, exceptional linked to competency. When you did something so good, it exceeded your expectations. Hone into that feeling of competence, the feeling of accomplishment. Tap into that sensation of competency and add that liquid into the pan. You have all these incredible resources, these sensations, being clever, ingenious, alert. All these feelings are being added into the pan. Add intelligence, not just cleverness or super smart or ultra smart, but the feeling of intelligence, that your brain just works quicker than it normally does. Perhaps you can imagine a time when you were intelligent and then times it by 100, feeling what it would feel like to be hyper intelligent, and add that sensation, that resource, that feeling into the pan. Think of a time when you were discerning, where your standards were so high that it mattered as to the choices that you made. A time when you were discerning. Climb into that memory. Feel how good it felt to be respectful of your time, your standards, and add that sensation of discernment into the mix, into this heady concoction of all these different cocktails of emotions. Add a feeling of wisdom into this crazy pot of all these different emotions, all fusing together now. Think of a time when you were wise. Tap into that feeling of wisdom and add it into the mix. And then add perceptiveness, a time when your perception was so high that you were so aware, a time when you were able to see things that other people couldn't see. Tap into that feeling, that time, that emotion, and add that perceptive nature into the mix. Think of a time when you were educated, but educated from the point of view of passion and enthusiasm, that you learnt something not because you had to learn it or you were being taught it, but a time when you learnt something through effortless, enthusiastic desire, where learning was something you wanted to do. Add that feeling of being like a sponge, soaking up knowledge effortlessly. And then imagine squeezing that sponge and allowing that enthusiasm to drip into that pan, which is now adding with all these different feelings, emotions, and sensations and resources. That's it. Think of a time when you were at your most creative. Perhaps it was artistically creative. Perhaps it was a time when you were creative with a brilliant idea. It may be a time when you invented something that you hadn't seen before. Maybe you solved a problem in a highly creative way. But take that feeling of creativity and inventiveness and add it into the mix. A time when you felt shrewd or cunning, wily in some way. Not just clever, but clever in a way that reacts to your environment, that means that you're able to gather and process all the information simultaneously. And I want you to imagine what it would be to add those feelings into this mix. And let's throw some other things in there as well. A time when you were savvy, a time when you were sensible, a time when you were prudent or judicious, a time when you had the combination of logic and emotion in perfect partnership, a time when you were in flow, a time when you were not just nimble or quick-witted or sharp, but a time when you were with an edge. I want you to add all of these things and add them into what now is a full pot, a saucepan, perhaps even what might look like a cauldron, because this is just your imagination creating a pot filled with a cocktail of resourceful emotions, all that are bubbling and fusing together. And I wonder what it would be like for you to start mixing this. I want you to imagine that there is a large wooden spoon nearby. I want you to imagine feeling the texture of this large wooden spoon as you turn it around. Imagine mixing it together in the same way that you can imagine as a child mixing a large pot of soup or stew, but this time you're creating something marvelous, something incredible, something that the world has never seen before. What if you're creating a brand new feeling that no one's ever felt before, a brand new resourceful sensation? What if this cocktail of all these different feelings made you feel a certain way that gave you the ability to do things, accomplish things, create things that nobody has ever seen before? I wonder what that would be like. And I want you to imagine stirring and mixing this cocktail, this concoction of all these different feelings, sensations, resources all together. And then I want you to imagine perhaps finding somewhere in the kitchen a ladle, and I want you to imagine finding a glass, a cup, and I want you to imagine scooping a ladle of this marvelous concoction, and I want you to imagine pouring this liquid into a transparent glass. And I wonder what color it is. I wonder what it smells like. I wonder if it's transparent or perhaps a solid color. Only your imagination will be able to reveal what your particular concoction is, because this is something that you have created from your own experiences, your own knowledge, your own wisdom. And I wonder what it would be like to imagine tasting this marvelous concoction. I want you to imagine taking this liquid to your lips, having a smell, and I want you to imagine that it smells pleasant and desirable. I want you to imagine that you take a sip and then a bit more of a sip, and I want you to imagine drinking the entire glass. And as you drink that glass, I want you to experience the feeling of this combination of all these exceptionally resourceful emotional states all fused together, what it does to your breathing. Do you breathe deeper and stronger? What does it do to your physiology, your posture? What does it do to your facial expression as you drink this marvelous concoction? What does it do to the ideas that you think of? Does it give you a feeling of superpowers? Does it make you feel more clever, smarter, intelligent than you've ever felt before? Does it give you a feeling perhaps of being ingenious, of being creative, of being a very quick problem solver? And I want you to imagine what you would do with this experience as an 8-year-old. Just imagine leaving this house and being able to do whatever you would want to do with this combination of incredible talents, ways of thinking, and resources. Think of what you would do, and think of what you could do with not just those resources, but the knowledge that you have throughout your whole life, but into the body of an 8-year-old. What would you do as an 8-year-old if you had all of these resources and all of your experiences? And I want you to unlock the ability to play, to allow your imagination to have fun. Imagine what you would do with all that knowledge, all that experience, and all those resources as an 8-year-old child, an 8-year-old version of you. That's right. Allow your imagination to run wild, to have fun, to play. And I want you to imagine returning to the house. And in your imagination, there is no concept of time. And it may be that you think back to this moment and re-explore what it would be like to be an 8-year-old, having all of these resources and all of your experience. But I want you to use the power of this imagination in this resourceful state to imagine what you could do at your age in real life, back in reality, not in a storybook, feeling this resourceful. What problems could you solve? What decisions would you make? What new goals or challenges would you set yourself? What would you dare to attempt if you felt this resourceful? And I want you to take another full cup of this incredible concoction. As you drink even more, feel the warmth as it goes into your body. Notice these feelings, vibrations, the energy increasing inside you. All of these resources are being activated. A feeling of being apt, ingenious, clever, brainy, intelligent, savvy, wise, astute, discerning. I want you to imagine all of these things of being cunning and clever. I want you to imagine all of these things of being enthusiastic, resourceful. All of these things are activated simultaneously in you at exactly the same time. And I want you to think what you would do in your real life. What things have you been putting off that you would now revisit? What would you do that you've always knew that you could do if only you felt the right way? And what if you feel the right way now? What would you do to be more discerning in your life now? How would you raise your standards? How would you take your life in exactly the direction that you've always wanted to take it? What would you do in the present that would mean a future version of you would be grateful for the effort and the seeds that you are sowing in that present? What can you do that your future self would be grateful for? And I want you to think that this feeling of resourcefulness can be accessed whenever you want, because the blueprint is not in this marvelous concoction. The blueprint is the belief. Belief unlocks the resources. The resources unlock the action, and the action influences the results. So what would you do feeling this resourceful? What actions would you take? What would you do when you wake up in the morning? What would you do differently in your career or workplace or business? What would you do differently to improve your health and well-being? What would you do to improve the quality of your relationships and friendships? What would you do to take your life and mean that you can have more impact positively in the lives of other people? What can you do to increase your wealth and financial resources? Feeling this resourceful, feeling that even if something doesn't go to plan, that you can simply solve the problem, learn from the situation, and then be even more equipped to make new decisions to steer your life in the very direction that you want to take it. What if you can unlock that feeling of having a defined purpose, a passion, a mission, unlocking all of the resources necessary in this marvelous concoction, accessing whenever you need them most? Feel how good it would feel to immediately take your life in the direction that you want to take it most. Imagine what the next few days and weeks and months would be like with that level of activity, with that level of self-belief. It's been said that in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And if you felt this resourceful at a time when everyone else just feels an average level of resourcefulness, what if you could be the king in your kingdom, more resourceful than anyone else around, confident to make decisions that need to be made? What if you feel that you can take on challenges that other people are scared to take on? What if you could be the leader that people have been looking for a while? And then I want you to take one last cup of this marvelous concoction, feeling those resources resonate and vibrate every cell in your body. Feel the energy levels exploding, giving you the ability to access all these incredible resources. And then I want you to imagine that you are not in that kitchen with that big pot of a marvelous concoction. I want you to imagine that you're upstairs in that body, asleep, and perhaps this is just your imagination dreaming what it would be like, but perhaps you're not even in that bed. What if you're cross-legged on a floor listening to a story being told by someone else about a character that concocted a marvelous concoction? And what if that story is just imagination within imagination within imagination, and actually you're listening to my voice now. You're hearing my voice as a recording, and you're hearing it perhaps through earphones or through a speaker, and you're hearing it to your body in your location at this time. And I want you to imagine that even though you are in a different place to that 8-year-old child that was drinking that marvelous concoction, I want you to imagine what it would be like to connect that feeling of resourcefulness in that 8-year-old character within a story within you right now. Imagine what it would be like in your body right now to drink that very same marvelous concoction, unlocking all those incredible resources. Imagine what it would be like to feel it in your body rather than the body of an 8-year-old child. That's it. Feeling highly resourceful, feeling ingenious, feeling resourceful, feeling exceptional, feeling hyper intelligent, feeling enthusiastic, feeling motivated, feeling determined, feeling cunning, shrewd and wily, feeling that you can take on any challenge in your way. In a few moments' time, I'm going to count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, and you will awaken with these resources available to you, unlocked and at your disposal whenever you need them most. You will awaken feeling highly, highly resourceful and safe in the knowledge that your unconscious mind will activate these resources at the point in time where they will have the biggest impact and be the most beneficial for you. All parts of you, the past, the present, and the future, will awaken in this moment and will be working with you to take your life in exactly the direction that will have the biggest positive impact on you and the people around you you care most for. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.